Hello, everyone. Welcome to University Affordability. Today's transfer chat is brought to you by a collaborative effort from Hartnell College, Cabrillo College, and Monterey Peninsula College to assist our transfer students and their families in understanding, the transfer process and also connecting with important resources at the university, right? And so today's topic will be covered by Ms. Noelle Lake from CSUMB Financial Aid Department. And we will be sharing some resources with you on the items that you need to make sure that you have handy when filing your FAFSA or your California DREAM Act application. And we'll also go over some scholarship resources. And to wrap up our session, we will be answering some questions. And so I invite you that if you have questions throughout the session, please go ahead and add them to the chat box, and we will review those at the end of the presentation. So as your questions come up, feel free to type them in, and then we'll answer them at the end. And without further ado, actually, I do want to remind you that tomorrow's transfer chat is regarding support network. And so I do want to encourage you to attend our session tomorrow evening to meet local CSU and UC representatives and learn about the support programs available at the university to make your transition as a transfer student a success. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Noelle Lake, and I am from CSUMB. I'm one of the financial aid counselors here. Just one participation. Has everybody done their FAFSA if you guys are planning to come for the upcoming year 22-23? If so, if you guys can put a thumbs up in the chat box so just I know where we're at. My presentation today is just going to be a little overview. If you guys already know this is awesome. It's just a little overview about FAFSA and the DREAM Act application. Oh, thank you, Natalia. So if you guys have completed your FAFSA, or if you guys even know the information about FAFSA, just go ahead and drop a thumbs up in the chat, and then let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty. Okay. So like I said, today we're going to talk about more of your financial aid, right? And how we can, or how I can guide you the best ways possible, right? Because, where's the money? So we always want money to help, fund our education. So hopefully y'all know about the FAFSA and the DREAM Act application. It is a free application and you have to complete it every academic year. So if you guys are coming to CSUMB, for example, for the upcoming year of 22-23, then the FAFSA application for that year is already open. Keep in mind, FAFSA and the DREAM Act application opens every October 1st, and the priority deadline is March 2nd. Now, the DREAM Act application is a little bit strict on our deadline. So if you completed it after the March 2nd, unfortunately, you won't be receiving aid. So make sure you guys put this in your calendar for the FAFSA and the DREAM Act application. Every October 1st, it opens, and the priority deadline is March 2nd. As you see on my slides, that you can see both of the links where you can find the FAFSA and the DREAM Act application. Now, what is the EFC? I know that's one of the popular terms in financial aid, which is the expected family contribution. What that is basically a number. The higher the number, most likely you'll only be eligible for loans. The lower the number, which you can receive is 0 as an EFC, you can be eligible for grants and loans. Now, the FAFSA application, like a couple of years ago, they promoted a new mobile app. Unfortunately, the DREAM Act application doesn't have a mobile app, but with the FAFSA, it's called My Student Aid. It's a little bit more handy because let's just say if you're still a dependent student and you're still under your parents, well, the good thing is that if you're not with your parents at that time, well, your section and your parents' section can be filed at the same time, or when you guys are not together. But even if you're not a dependent student, you're still more than welcome to go ahead and download the mobile app called My Student Aid. It's really easy and handy because it just walks you through it one by one, and it can't move forward until you put the correct amounts or just the correct information. Now, hopefully you guys already completed this, but if you haven't, please complete an FSA ID. What this is just basically a username for you to create. You have to create it every year, which you can use it actually the same every year. So if you guys are a dependent student, keep in mind that you do have to have an FSA ID for you and a parent. Now, ITIN numbers, if your parents do not have a social, Please keep in mind that ITINs are not the social security numbers. So if any of your parents or yourself don't have a social, you want to make sure that you always enter zeros. And then also keep in mind that student and parent cannot use the same email address or phone number. And also, if you guys have any questions, I will answer all the questions at the end of the presentation once I look at the chat. But I do have my colleague Christina or anybody who will answer the chat or your answers through the chat. Now, the IRS data retrieval tool, what this is basically, this is the easiest and fastest way to go ahead and upload your taxes or your parents' taxes. The reason why I say it's the easiest and fastest way, because let's just say you were selected for any documentation from that school, which I will mention in a future slide. This is the easiest way for us as financial aid office to process your documents. And it's an easier and faster way also because you don't have to manually input your taxes. So if you guys are eligible, make sure you guys go ahead and link your taxes, which is the upcoming year 2020 taxes, onto the data retrieval tool. Now, don't freak out if it takes you to this website, okay? Because when you link, it's going to ask for a specific address. You always want to make sure that you use the address that you or your parents use for their taxes. If you are eligible, on the screen, it'll give you two options. It'll say transfer my tax information or do not transfer. Hopefully we want to transfer, right? So you guys will go ahead and click on the transfer, and then it will successfully go through, and then you'll go back onto the FAFSA application. So if you haven't linked your taxes, I highly, highly recommend to go ahead and link your taxes onto the IRS data retrieval tool when you file or when you complete your taxes portion on the FAFSA application. Now, what happens next? Let's just say you completed the FAFSA application and we want to know what's the next step, right? So hopefully you guys all completed your FAFSA application. And like I mentioned about the EFC, right? What it is, it's a number. But how do we know what the EFC is? So basically all the information that you inputted on your FAFSA application, that's what generates the EFC or the number. What it takes in consideration is your income if you're an independent student. If you're not an independent student, they'll take in consideration of yours and your parents' income, how many people are in a household, how many people are going to college, obviously the taxes, and then other checking assets. And it all develops into what's called the EFC, which is the expected family contribution. Also note on the bottom right of my screenshot, you'll see, for example, let's just say that this is your estimated award letter. Keep in mind, it will only show your federal aid. If you guys ever want to know about your state aid, CSAC, California Student Aid Commission, which I'll mention that in the future, that they will personally actually send you an email if you are eligible, and then the next steps. But on the bottom right hand screen, you'll see that this student was eligible for the federal Pell Grant and student loans. Now, whenever you read this page, right, it's always annual. So keep in mind here at CSUMB, we award you annually, meaning we will split your awards half for both fall and spring semester. Okay, so you always want to take a look once you submit your FAFSA application. You always want to look at the confirmation page. They also send you an email about your student aid report, also known as SAR. You can look at your estimated awards, like I said, and even if you were selected for any documents, it will show on there as well. Now, like I mentioned about the student aid report, okay, they will send you an email about your SAR report, okay? And like I said, it will show your estimated awards, what colleges that you did that you added on FAFSA, and then also if you were selected for any documents, okay? So you always wanna make sure that you always put the most accurate and updated email and information onto your FAFSA application. Now, why is my SAR important? Well, keep in mind, you want to read the SAR report because it does have some comments if you were selected for any documents such as verification, citizenship, select a service, all right? It could show your potential or your estimated awards from not only all of your institutions, but it'll just show from your federal financial aid. Like I said, it won't show your state aid, such as Cal Grant, Middle Class Scholarship, or State University Grant. Okay, and then it will also show additional documents if you are selected for any documents that we can request, and also school information. Now, like I mentioned, let's just say that you saw on your SAR report that you were selected for documents. right? So this is the most common, which is the verification, okay? So if you were selected for verification, remember when I mentioned about the IRS data retrieval tool? Like I said, you wanna link your taxes because that is the fastest way, if you were selected for verification, for us as financial aid office to process your documents. If you're selected for citizenship, we do wanna have the most accurate and updated passport, alien registration, which it will mention on the SAW report what type of documents that we would need if it was verification, citizenship, or even selective service. But keep in mind with the selective service is only for students who are eligible, you know, if they want state aid such as Cal Grant, okay? Now, there are some special circumstances. So the biggest special circumstance that we've seen so far is called the income change form. What the income change form is, let's just say your parents or yourself experienced a decrease of income as of today compared to your 2020 taxes that you will provide on the 22-23 FAFSA. That is the reason, or that is the form for us to explain what's happening and why your income changed, which is drastically changed as of today compared to 2020. Okay, so it might be different from other institutions, or it might be won't be called an income change, might be called special circumstances. But if that's ever the case, you know, if you are planning to come to CSUMB and you experience that income change or any other special circumstances scenario, you will I highly recommend to reach out to the financial aid office. But for us, for example, if you were experienced as an income change, or maybe you were separate from your spouse and now only your income is on the FAFSA, please reach out to us as the financial aid office or any other institution financial aid office to see what documents they need to see what accurate information that will actually be eligible for you to receive financial aid. Now, federal and state aid programs. So this is what potentially you can receive, because you can receive grants and loans. Now, keep in mind, grants are free money and loans you do have to pay back. Now, the list here is you have the federal Pell Grant, the FSCOG, which a lot of you guys, I know you guys are incoming transfers, so you guys probably won't be eligible for that because usually that's for like in first-time freshmen. But you guys could qualify for EOP, State University Grant, Cal Grant, and Middle Class Scholarship. Now, like I said about FAFSA application, it will only show your federal aid. Now, the last three is state aid, which State University Grant, for example, we would actually tell you if you were eligible for the State University Grant. For Cal Grant and Middle Class Scholarship, it would be through CSAC, the California Student Aid Commission. Now, with loans, they're a little different. You do have to pay them back 6 months after you graduate. Now, the difference between these loans, if you are interested, if you're not interested, it's always available for you every year if eligible. Now, I know the common question is, what's the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized? Well, the difference between a subsidized loan is that you do not have to pay interest while you're attending school, or at least half-time status. The unsubsidized loan is where the interest does accumulate once we disperse it on your account. If this is not enough, let's just say, and you're still a dependent student, there is called a plus loan, which one of your parents can go ahead and request how much they would like to take out, but it is based off credit check. Now, for DACA students, for a DREAM Act application, there are some DREAM loans out there for you guys as well, which we do have a specific counselor for us at CSUMB who are in charge of DREAM students, and if you're interested in DREAM loans. If you're interested in the teaching credential program, we do offer what's called a Teach Grant. The reason why it's a Teach Grant / loan is because the bottom line is, if you're not teaching, or if you're not in the teaching credential program or pursuing your teaching credential in general, and you change majors, then actually that Teach Grant does change into an unsubsidized loan. Now, limits for Pell Grant. So I know all of you guys are incoming transfers. So keep in mind that for the federal Pell Grant, you have up to 6 years, which is a total of 600%. So if you are coming, let's just say for the spring semester, next semester here at CSUMB, and you are enrolled in a full-time status, it will give you your full Pell. If you're enrolled less than full-time, which here at CSUMB is under 12 units, then we will go ahead and adjust your Pell Grant accordingly, okay? So keep in mind, it does start from the first term that you started your college career. And if you did receive financial aid, then just keep in mind you have up to 6 years to receive financial aid and the Pell Grant. Now, like I mentioned about the Cal Grant, it is state aid, which, like I said, make sure you guys update your guys' emails because they will send you emails letting you know if you're eligible or if you've been awarded. Now with Cal Grant, to be considered for a Cal Grant, the student must complete the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application by March 2nd. You always want to ensure that your GPA verification is submitted by March 2nd. A lot of you guys are incoming transfer. So if you are a most recent college attended GPA, the student has attended college. So I know with Cal Grant, they have a website called Web Grants for Students. So if you guys are eligible for Cal Grant, or let's just say you guys got a Cal Grant from Hartnell, you always want to make sure that you guys always change the school where you're applying. So for example, if you are attending Hartnell for the fall and you got your Cal Grant and you're coming here at CHMB for next semester, you just want to log back on Web Grants for Students, do the school change, and then submit it. If you guys have any other questions, make sure I do have the link for Web Grants for Students if you guys want to see if you guys are eligible for the Cal Grant. And then let's just say you already know that you're eligible for the Cal Grant, you must be enrolled in at least 15 units to graduate on time. Now, the middle class scholarship, it's state aid as well, which this is similar to Cal Grant, but it's also a scholarship. But keep in mind, you cannot get state aid all at once. So let's just say that you got the Cal Grant, you can't get the Cal Grant in middle class, or you can't get the middle class of state university grant. You can only receive one is because it all goes towards your tuition. So with the middle class scholarship, okay, you must complete your FAFSA or your DREAM Act application between October 1st and then the deadline of March 2nd. It is eligible for students or undergraduates or students pursuing their first teaching credential program. This middle class scholarship is designed for families with incomes and assets of up to $184,000. And then you can actually receive it up to 4 years. So like I said, if you have any questions for state aid, csac.cal.gov is right there. And then also I provided their number. So if you guys are questioning that maybe you did get the Cal Grant, but you just didn't get it at your previous or your current institution, feel free to give them a call to see if you are eligible or even if you've been awarded as well. All right, limits for loans. I can tell you this, with my experience taking out student loans, it was a little scary, I'm not gonna lie to you. But with managing it and having, more knowledge about different repayment plans and, what my experience was is take what you need and not what you want, right? So with loans, if you do need it, I think it's the best route rather than, slaying over 40 hours of work, but totally understandable if you don't want to take out loans. But loans are there to help. And like I said, the difference between, student loans, like the subsidized and unsubsidized, is that subsidized, no interest while you're in school, and unsubsidized, the interest does accumulate. So depending on your dependency status, dependent or independent, you do have a cap of your lifetime eligibility of loans. So let's just say, you're an incoming transfer and you are an independent student, which I feel like a lot of you guys, majority are. If you are an independent student, your cap of receiving your lifetime eligibility is $57,500 as an undergraduate. Now, if you see the chart, the 23,000 for dependent and independent, that's basically the same as your cap for your subsidized eligibility. So you can't go over that 23,000. If you guys are pursuing, for graduate school, any graduate programs, keep in mind, most likely you'll only be eligible for student loans, okay? And if you see on the right side, if you are pursuing your graduate or, credentials, you can see that the amount of your lifetime eligibility is a little bit bigger compared to your undergrad. So here, types of financial aid at CHMB is we do offer scholarships, grants, and subsidized loan, which is a need-based. What I mean by need-based is basically it's based off the FAFSA application. So technically, if you're eligible for it. Now, let's just say you're not eligible for that. We do offer loans, which is the unsubsidized loan, parent loans, private loans, and scholarship, which some scholarships are non-need based, okay? But I still highly recommend, even if you feel like you don't qualify for the FAFSA or DREAM Act application, still go ahead and apply because you never know, maybe you do need a loan in one term and you just didn't do the FAFSA. So I highly recommend to just always do the FAFSA and the DREAM Act application every academic year. So scholarships. So we do have our general CSU and B scholarship application. The good thing about our scholarship is that we do have multiple donors. So last year we have about 60 different donors and scholarships to offer to students. So the good thing with our scholarship is that it's just one general application. And with that general application, it applies to all scholarships. It is currently open for us if you guys are planning to come for the upcoming year for the 22-23 academic year. You'll just go on our website, financial aid, and then under scholarships, you will see that it will say the general CSNB general application. What we require for our scholarship application is we do need 2 letters of recommendation. So anybody but family, and let's just say your professor doesn't want to give it to you for some reason. Well, we do give them a link that they can upload it themselves. Okay, so we have that option as well. You do have to upload your unofficial transcripts and then maybe just a page and a half essay about your accomplishments. What do you do, or what do you feel like you want to succeed? You know, just highly talking about yourself. And it's, like I said, just a page and a half. So if you guys are planning to come for the 22-23 academic year, our general scholarship application is now open, and it will close around February. So here are a couple of interesting facts is that our average direct cost of attendance is $21,346 a year, which my good friend Mercedes will give you guys a couple of forms of the cost of attendance at multiple schools. So when I say about the cost of attendance of $21,000, that's basically annually. So here at CHB, we charge and you pay by the semester. Okay, so with that $21,000, you're looking about like your tuition, housing, on-campus housing, and meal plan. Every student has access to an individual financial aid counselor. So we do have alphas, such as myself, and in each program as well. So for myself, one of my programs is Cal Grant. So we do have that on our website of each program of who or which counselor is in charge of. And then if you guys are planning to come to CHB, just keep in mind that if you do want to plan to go study abroad, we do have financial aid available for that as well. And then lastly, I mentioned about our general scholarship application. Last year, like I said, we offered over 60 different scholarships. Now we're almost towards the end, so just keep in mind, these are the few things that you want to be mindful of is remember to read your email, even during summer, because summer is basically our peak season. So that's basically all the information, you know, what's your estimated award letter, if you're selected for any documents, how much am I going to get to cover, you know, the fall semester. We always communicate with you to your email. So that's why I highly suggest to always put your updated email on FAFSA, the DREAM Act application. And then once you are entered, then we will communicate through your CSUB email. The second part is order tax return transcripts. You only have to order those if you were selected for verification. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's why I recommend to link onto the IRS data retrieval tool, because that's basically the same thing instead of handing in this tax return transcripts from the IRS. So if you were selected for any documents, you want to check your SAR report. And if you were selected for verification, then I do recommend, if you can't link, then get those tax return transcripts on the IRS website specifically. Another one is ordering a non-filing letter. This is basically similar to the tax return transcripts if you were selected for the verification, okay? And then also remember to, sorry, I couldn't even see this. Ooh. But anyways, but just remember to check your emails and then check your to-do list as well. So for example, here at CHB, we have what's called our Oasis account. So on your Oasis account, you'll see where you enrolled in your classes, if you have any holds, or your to-do list. Your to-do list, if you have anything on your to-do list, for example, from financial aid, we probably can't even award you or see what your awards are until those documents or your to-do list is cleared. So you always want to just check in on your Oasis account if you're planning to come to CSUB over the summer. So that kind of wraps up my presentation. I'm pretty sure you guys have a lot of questions, but this is our contact information. If you guys want to stop by, give us a call, or even send us a general email, we are here to help. We do have our live Zoom-in hours weekly, and it's every day posted on our general on our main financial aid page, and then you'll get to talk to one of us as a one-on-one counselor. We even, if you need help filling out your FAFSA, we are more than happy to look over to make sure everything is accurate and correct. Like I said, we're here to help. And that wraps up my presentation. Right now, Mercedes is going to drop into the chat. If you guys can just go ahead and see, she has a couple of resources forms, such as, multiple scholarships and just a little routine checklist for you guys for the DREAM Act application and the FAFSA application. And then also what's neat about another handout she's provide on the chat is the cost of attendance too. So it will show different types of cost of attendance at different institutions. So like I mentioned, CSUB, it's roughly around 21,000. So I highly encourage you guys to look over those handouts. It's really handy, and hopefully it'll give you guys the next steps to complete your FAFSA, fill out as much as scholarship as you can, and then just give you like a general estimate of what you're looking for or how much you got to pay out of pocket or how much will financial aid cover your expenses. But that basically wraps up my presentation. So I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And if you guys have any questions, I am here, or I can just read the chat. Or is there any questions for me that I can explain, Christina, Mercedes, or any general ones?
Yes, so there's one question that we have on the chat that hasn't been answered about, what about students that don't file income tax because they're exempt? So how would they submit documentation? What's the situation with students that don't file taxes?
Yeah, of course. And that's super easy, to tell you the truth. If you did not file taxes, or exempt on your student, I believe it's like student demographics or your portion of your taxes, it will give you options. And it will say, will not going to file, will file, or not going to file, will file, already filed and completed. So in your case, it will just say not going to file. And then don't freak out, because when you do that, it's going to ask for your wages, right? So there's some students that didn't file, but they worked. So if you did work in 2020, I recommend to put your amount on your W-2s that you receive on the wages. And let's just say you didn't file nor work. You can always enter 0 for that next question of the wages. Okay. Will you discuss when students are considered independent from their parents for financial aid purposes at CSU? Well, I can't speak behalf, great question, by the way. I can't speak behalf of all CSUs, but for us, for example, for CSUMB, there is a requirement of or qualifications to be considered as an independent. So for example, through FAFSA guidelines is, are you over the age of 24? Are you currently married, under the age of 24? Do you have dependents of your own under the age of 24? Or is there a special circumstance that you do not have no contact with your parent? Those are some of the qualifications. Now it is based off different institutions, right? So I'm only speaking for CSUMB for ourselves. It could be different at Hartnell, it could be different at Cabrillo. But I highly recommend, if that is the case, please directly go to the financial aid office and discuss. Now, I know there's FERPA, confidentiality, where there are procedures and protocols if this is a special circumstance. So if that is the case in your case, I really recommend to go talk to a financial aid counselor to see if you are considered as an independent and what are the next steps to see if you are considered an independent student. All right. Any other questions? I'm trying to scroll, sorry.
I don't see any other questions on the chat box that haven't been answered yet. But one question that came up was whether or not the FAFSA was a thing that has been filed for community college, and the answer is yes, right? So you filed the FAFSA that you've been filing as a community college student, you would renew that application. And this time around, as you're planning to transfer to the university, you would add the campuses that you're interested in applying to. They all would have the opportunity to download your financial aid information. I'm going to go ahead and share. So on the chat box, we did drop 3 documents that I wanted to review with you all. One handout indicates, what you need in order to complete your FAFSA application. So it gives you a little checklist for you to prepare these documents before you file your FAFSA. And the neat thing about the financial aid applications is that they're open now, right? So you can file the California Dream Act application or the FAFSA today if you had all these documents ready to go. And the deadline continues to be March 2nd every spring, right? And so please make sure that you plan accordingly and that you set yourself up so that you're not missing this important deadline. The other handout that we dropped in there was, the items that you need to collect to complete your California Dream Act application. And the third handout that we have here is the cost of attendance, right? And so Ms. Noel kind of went over this already briefly. She talked about how at CSUMB, the estimated cost of attendance is around $21,000, right? And so what I want to highlight when you're looking at the cost of attendance is making sure that you understand what you're really going to pay out of pocket, right? So the most important piece is the tuition and fees. Those are requirements that you do need to fulfill. So whether it's through scholarships, grants, or other financial aid resources, you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to finance this section, right? Because tuition and fees is essential to your enrollment and progress at the university. Room and board is something that can move around, right? So maybe you spend $8,000 when you're attending the community college, maybe you spend zero. If you're living at home, maybe this cost has, gone down to zero for you, right? So you're not necessarily spending the total cost that you see on these charts unless you really are spending out of pocket for these items, right? So for many of us that are attending community college, if you're living at home with parents, maybe you're not paying room and board, so you're saving that money there, right? Books and supplies tends to be, pretty uniform across the higher ed system where you're spending around $1,000. And then transportation will vary as well. If you live on campus, for example, you're not going to have to worry about those fees. And sometimes, included in your tuition and fees, you're paying for public transit. So as a student, maybe you don't even have to worry about transportation because you can hop on the public transportation system for free since you're already paying for that in your tuition and fees. And then for personal items, right, that can also vary. So maybe you spend $5,000, maybe you spend zero on your personal items. And as a first generation college student myself, I know that I struggled, but sometimes you do have to cut your costs, while you're a college student. I think everyone who's in college understands, what it means to be college and have to really budget your money. Because sometimes there's a difference between having to work and go to school, or maybe you don't work, but through your financial aid and scholarships, you're able to just focus on your education, but then you also don't have that much spending money, right? So you have to budget that wisely. And then one aspect that is really important is for everyone to understand that your FAFSA or California Dream Act has to be filed and renewed every year by the March 2nd deadline, even when you don't think that you qualify for financial aid. We see this a lot with community college students. Sometimes you filed it at the community college, and because our rates at the community college are more affordable, sometimes you don't qualify for financial aid. So then you assume, well, I'm never going to qualify for it. The difference is at the university, the tuition and enrollment fees are going to be much higher, and you will likely qualify for some type of financial aid. And even if you just apply for scholarships, to claim those scholarships through the university, you have to have filed a FAFSA. And I've seen this happen more at the community college, where sometimes students don't submit their FAFSA application and they got a scholarship and they're like, the financial aid office is saying that they can't receive my scholarship. Well, it's because you haven't filed a FAFSA application or a Dream Act application. So make sure that you are renewing those every year, and join us for any resources. Noel also shared how the financial aid department at CSUMB has drop-in sessions to assist students with their applications. The same happens at the community colleges, MPC financial aid department, Cabrillo College financial aid department, Hartnell financial aid department host workshops to help you through the application. So please seek out help if you need it. And the second part of this handout has linked various scholarship resources. And so one thing I want to highlight is that really there's really no rules to applying for scholarships other than making sure that you're eligible for them. And then, obviously scholarship applications should not be requesting money from you. Although I will say there are some very useful apps like Scholly that you can download. It has a small fee and it has a bunch of resources for scholarships. But it's important that you start researching early. MALDEF.org, which is the first hyperlink here, provides a resource that is updated yearly. And what I like about this resource, if you look at the PDF, it's a long list of scholarships that have been outlined by deadlines. So for example, here are all the January deadlines posted. It has the summary of the eligibility requirements. So you can browse this document, highlight the scholarships that you meet the eligibility criteria for, and then make a note to make sure that you submit those applications when they're due. So this is really helpful to get you started with your scholarship research. It's helpful to have one standard, personal statement that you can tailor to each of these applications. And it is important to edit your personal statement and tailor it to the application. It means a lot when you are acknowledging the organization or the committee that's, offering you the scholarship. And, for those of you that tuned in last night and you heard from other transfer students about their journey to the university, they do highlight that, you should be applying to any and all scholarships available out there, because there are so many scholarships that sometimes get, disregarded. Students are thinking like, well, maybe I'm not going to qualify. But if you're the only applicant, guess what? You might be getting the award because no one else is competing with you. So definitely, we encourage you to apply to any and all scholarships available. So on that handout, like I said, we hyperlink scholarship resources from Hartnell, MPC, Cabrillo, CSUMB, and UC Santa Cruz. But every university will have a scholarship website as well. So we encourage you to do that research, pay attention to the campuses you're applying to, and go on their websites to find out what transfer scholarships are available to you. Most universities promote transfer scholarships in the spring semester. So this semester, you guys are busy submitting your applications for admission. Early January, February, start looking at, transfer scholarship application deadlines, because you'll see them among all the universities. Usually they'll have those deadlines around February or March to kind of match the financial aid application deadline as well. Let me go ahead and
then Mercedes, can I add something?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so I just want to piggyback on what Mercedes said. The one common question that I get from transfer students is, do we get the BOG fee waiver, or also known as the promise grant? So I just want to keep you guys informed, is that any CSUs, UCs, we don't offer the promise grant, or now known as the promise grant. It was the BOG fee waiver. So just keep in mind, if we're thinking of, okay, we did the FAFSA application, we did the DREAM Act application, I'm going to get that promise grant to have a tuition fee waiver. Unfortunately, we don't have that. So just keep in mind, my tips for you guys is, if you guys did your FAFSA for your DREAM Act application, you'll review your SAR report. Make sure that, remember, it's annual. So you'll subtract, obviously we want our grants first, right? Because we don't want loans yet. Subtract the grants from your cost of attendance. So for example, what Mercedes had that fabulous sheet, if you're planning to come to CSUMB, just subtract maybe your Pell Grant or your Cal Grant, subtract that annual amount, and then subtract it with the cost of attendance. It'll give you a better understanding. I'm like, okay, is my grants or my scholarships? Because you can get grants, scholarships, and loans, all of the above, to help pay for your education. And if it's more than enough to cover, guys, I guarantee you're going to get that money back to you in a refund. Because here at CSUMB, if financial aid, including your outside scholarship, if it's enough to cover, then what's going to happen is whatever the leftover is, once it disperses, it goes to you in a refund, which you can use for, books, rent, parking permit. So just keep that in mind, that we don't offer the promise grant. So financial aid will kick in towards your tuition, no waiver. But there are a couple of waivers, like the veteran fee waiver. If you are a vet or parents are veterans, reach out to our veteran coordinator or our veteran department. There's a lot of resources out there that a lot of people don't know. But if you are, getting outside scholarships, you're getting financial aid, all of that you can get together, which obviously that's going to help with your education. So utilize the scholarship resources because any penny counts, right? So my recommendation is just jump on it, even if it's like a few applications here, a few applications there. Anything helps, because I see students come in and out, athletes, internationals, or just undergraduates, graduate students. I see them in loan debt. I'm in loan debt, but to tell you the truth, loans are not scary, because if I share my screen, if you guys, let's just say all of you guys are already taking out loans, right? So my recommendation is keeping track of your loan lender, or just keep the track of your loans. So not only the financial aid has the FAFSA application, but it also has a lot of resources within that FAFSA site, or the studentaid.gov. So for example, let's just say your FSA ID, you log in here, and you just want to know, okay, how much loans did I take out over my college career or at MPC? Well, if you log into your FSA ID and then you come to manage loans. If you come to manage loans and you see who's my servicer, that's basically your loan lender. So if you see who your loan lender, so for example, mine is Navient, you can contact Navient and say, hey, I'm kind of thinking of paying my loans back. How much is like the minimum, or even look at your repayment plans. So there's always repayment plans that will fit you, right? Or a standard repayment plan. But there's a lot of resources on the FAFSA that you guys can take a look at, or even if you just don't know about financial aid, right? It's always just to educate yourself, because you never know if you might need that loan in the future, or maybe, kids in the future, the next generation, they ask for help for FAFSA. So I highly encourage you to make sure that you guys are aware if you are taking out loans, file scholarship applications here and there, and then reach out to the financial aid office, because we know a lot of financial aid, right? So you never know of Hartnell has their own scholarships, or they have their own financial aid. So that is my 2 cents there. And that was all. Oh, and there is one question. I don't know specifically a scholarship for undocumented students. But for us as our general scholarship application, undocumented students or DACA, you guys are more than welcome to fill out the CHMB general application. But for a specific one, I'm not sure if there is, but I'm pretty sure there is. Maybe reach out to Cal Grant, to CSAC, and see if they do have outside scholarships for DACA students or undocumented too.
Thank you, Noelle. And also the MALDEF.org scholarship resource that we linked on the handout does outline the Dreamer scholarships too. So that's a very helpful resource. Like I said, it's got like over 20 pages of scholarships, and it's just summaries of their eligibility criteria. And so you can highlight those that are, available to Dreamer students. And then again, forget to check the university websites. So their own Dreamer scholarships or any other additional resources they may have. A lot of universities nowadays have Dreamer centers as well, or transfer centers, and they can also connect you with additional scholarship opportunities. Usually the transfer centers at the universities will promote the scholarships because they understand that, financing your college education is important, right? And so please reach out if you need help connecting with scholarship opportunities, and we'll help you through that research process through the transfer center or financial aid departments at the institutions you're attending. Any additional questions? I think on the chat box, we've covered the questions that have been added. If you have any questions about financial aid or admissions at CSUMB, let us know. You can unmute yourself, or you can drop in a question in the chat box. Okay, we have one here. I want to know if you're going to talk about alternatives for international students, because as far as I know, I'm not eligible to apply for FAFSA or DREAM Act as an international student. And I'm listening that you require a FAFSA to apply for the scholarships and grants. Right now, I'm studying at Cabrillo, and I'm doing my best to convert the expenses. But in the future, I want to transfer to UC Santa Cruz. Is there any way to obtain a scholarship or grant as an international student? Noelle, do you have any insight you can share?
It's a little hard because international students, unfortunately, they're not eligible. You are correct with financial aid. Here at CSUMB, we do have our international program to where they will go to your home school and see if there's financial aid, or not technically financial aid, but expenses to help with your international, like the national international student exchange. But at UCSC, I can't speak for them. I highly recommend to reach out to them. But with international students, unfortunately, yeah, you are correct. There isn't no financial aid for you guys, but we do have scholarships, which is through our international program. So I highly recommend maybe start with the financial aid at UCSC. If they're giving you the same answer, maybe they can redirect you to their international program and see if they do have scholarships at UCSC. That's a start from there, and see if you can get some financial aid or some scholarships for you. But great question, by the way. Any other questions, or do you guys have anything? Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? I am here to help. Or maybe I covered everything.
Since you did such an amazing job, Noelle,
Thank you, Victor.
Noelle always does such an amazing job. I was just going to take this opportunity just to remind students about the CSU application. Hi, my name is Victor Gonzalez. I am a CSUMB employee, and I work very closely with our admissions folks. I just want to remind everybody that the CSU application is now open from October 1st. And for CSUMB, we do have our applications open to December 15th. However, that is not across the board for all CSUs. You definitely want to get your application in by November 30th, especially for CSUMB if you're applying to an impacted majors. And so for our fall 2022, our impacted majors are going to be most of our sciences. So it's going to be marine science, environmental science, computer science, as well as mathematics. We highly recommend that you get that application in before the November 30th so you can be considered as a student. And in the case that you need any assistance with that, we are holding application workshops as well. I just want to remind students how the CSU application works. So you fill out one, then most of the information transfers over to the other. So you can always utilize us at CSUMB to start your first application and then just add additional programs going forward. In the chat, I am going to go ahead and I added a flyer for all of our CSUMB hosted transfer application workshop dates. And that's where you can just check in and have somebody from one of the admissions counselors from CSUMB go ahead and look over your application and make sure everything's looking good. I know it's a scary process right now, transferring over and making that leap from the community college to the 4-year. So if you are one of those students that's feeling a little nervous or just wants that extra advocate behind you just to look over all of your stuff, feel free to drop into one of those sessions. They're drop-ins, and we'll put you in a breakout room and we'll make sure to look over everything and answer any questions that you have particular to the CSU application. Other than that, I just wanted to jump in and just give that reminder. And then again, thank you all for having us here today. And just, yeah, if you have any questions, just keep them coming in the chat.
Thank you, Victor. That's really helpful information. Please save that info and definitely reach out if you need any help. As you can see, there are plenty of resources, and it's important for you as transfer students to understand that all of the student support services available at the community college, at the university, we're here to see you succeed. We are here to serve you. Please do not be afraid to ask for help, and do not be embarrassed, and I know my experience was not as a transfer student, but it was as a first generation college student. And I understand the imposter syndrome. I understand that sometimes it's difficult to ask for help because you're not sure how that's going to be interpreted, and you're trying to convince, like, I belong here, and every time you hit a road bump, right, you're like, maybe I don't belong here, right? And what I'm trying to say tonight is just remind you that you do belong in college. College, higher education is here for everyone and anyone, and that is the value of the community colleges, is that it opens the door to higher education to anyone at any time in their lifetime, right? So you can come in at any time, whether you're an international student, whether you're already in the workforce 10 years plus and you're trying to steer in a different career. We're here and we're an open door for you because we need you to go and follow your dreams, right? So please make sure that you reach out to us for all of these support services that can help you succeed. You will find help wherever you go. The chat box, I also dropped a link for those of you that were interested in UC Santa Cruz. There is a UC transfer preparation program that is designed specifically for transfer students to connect you with resources related to financial aid and transitioning to the university. So please touch base with them if you need help transition to the UC. You now know Victor Gonzalez, who can help you connect with CSUMB as well. Ms. Noelle Lake, who's at CSUMB as well. So please connect with us if you need any additional help. Thank you so much for joining us today. If there are no additional questions, I think that we're able to call it a night. Thank you for attending our session tonight. We will be emailing the recording next week. So thanks again for checking in, and we hope that you can join us tomorrow. Like I said earlier in the session, tomorrow we are hosting the transfer chat and the support network. So we will have representatives from CSU, UC to speak about the support that's available at the university. And I hope that you can join us then and bring your questions. And if you can't attend, if you're registered for the transfer chats, you will be receiving the recording as well. Okay, great. So thank you so much for joining us tonight and have a great evening.